They found her lying on the cold road, dirty, broken, and terrified. No name, no memory, just empty eyes and a trembling body. People passed by, but one poor mechanic stopped. He carried her to the hospital, paid what he could, and brought her back to his small garage.
Help her.
She was just 15, mentally lost, forgotten by the world. He fed her before himself, gave her clothes, gave her safety. Slowly, she stopped being a stranger. She became his child. She sat beside him while he worked. She slept holding his old jacket, and he promised, "I'll protect you." Then one day, a luxury car stopped. A powerful billionaire stepped out, saw the girl, and collapsed in tears.
Daughter.
"That's my daughter," he cried. Lost for months, broken by an accident, found in the arms of a poor mechanic. The question is, when love is real, does blood still matter? Poor mechanics rescued a dying girl and feed her every day. One day, billionaire came looking for him. Garage stood at the far end of Maple Street, a place most people passed without noticing. The road here was uneven, patched with cracks and oil stains, telling stories of years gone by. Tall buildings shimmered miles away, but here, life moved slowly, quietly, like it had been forgotten by the city. Daniel Carter, a poor mechanic with tired eyes and oil-stained hands, lifted the rusted shutter of his garage, just as he did every morning. The metal screamed as it rolled upward, echoing through the empty street. Daniel paused for a moment, wiping sweat from his forehead with a faded handkerchief. His body ached, but he welcomed the pain. Work kept his mind busy. Silence did not. Inside, the garage smelled of grease, metal, and old memories. Tools hung neatly on the wall, each one earned through years of struggle. This small garage wasn't just his workplace, it was his shelter, his home, his entire world. Daniel bent over a broken car engine when he heard something unusual. A dull, heavy sound. Thud. He straightened up, his heart skipping a beat. It didn't sound like metal. It sounded like a body. Hello? He called, stepping outside cautiously. The sight froze him where he stood. A young girl lay sprawled near the entrance of the garage, her thin body curled awkwardly on the cold ground. She looked no older than 15. Her dress was torn, her feet bare and dusty, her hair knotted and wild as if she had been wandering for days. Her face was pale, almost lifeless, yet her eyes were open, wide, empty, afraid. She trembled slightly, lips moving, whispering words that had no meaning. Daniel rushed to her side and knelt down. "Hey, can you hear me?" he asked softly, afraid his voice might scare her. The girl flinched violently. She tried to crawl backward, dragging herself away with weak arms, her eyes filled with raw terror. She looked at Daniel as if he were a monster, not a man trying to help. Daniel's heart clenched. "It's okay," he said gently, raising his hands. "I won't hurt you." But she didn't understand. Or maybe she couldn't. People walked by, men in suits, women with shopping bags, teenagers laughing. Some slowed down, some stared, some whispered. No one stopped. No one cared. Daniel glanced around, anger rising in his chest. "She's just a child," he muttered under his breath. He removed his old jacket, the one he used to keep warm during cold nights in the garage, and carefully placed it over her shaking body. The girl grabbed it instantly, clutching it to her chest like it was her only protection. That moment broke something inside Daniel. He gently touched her shoulder. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She stared at him blankly. "What's your name?" He tried again. No response. The girl simply rocked back and forth, murmuring nonsense, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. Daniel exhaled deeply. He had seen broken engines, crushed cars, and twisted metal, but he had never seen something so painfully broken as this child's mind. He looked at the sky, then back at her. Asterisk. I don't know who you are, he whispered, and I don't know where you came from, but I won't leave you like this. Asterisk. Slowly, carefully, Daniel lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than she should have been, like a bird with hollow bones. For a moment she resisted, then suddenly went still, resting her head against his chest. She could hear his heartbeat steady, calm, safe. Daniel felt tears sting his eyes. The weight in his arms wasn't heavy, but the responsibility was. As he carried her down the street toward the hospital, whispers followed him. Asterisk. Is she drunk? She's crazy. Why is he getting involved? Daniel ignored them all. With every step, he remembered his wife, how she used to say kindness was the only thing that made life worth living. He remembered the child he never got to hold. Asterisk. Maybe fate hadn't taken everything from him after all. The girl tightened her grip on his jacket, as if she sensed something like her life was about to change, and so was his. As the hospital doors came into view, Daniel whispered the words he didn't even know he meant. You're safe now. I promise. The automatic doors of the city hospital slid open with a cold mechanical sound. Bright white light spilled onto the floor, harsh and unforgiving, a sharp contrast to the dim, dusty street Daniel had just left behind. The smell of disinfectant filled the air, burning his nose. He tightened his hold on the girl instinctively, as if the unfamiliar place might frighten her even more. Her body felt limp in his arms, yet her fingers clutched his jacket tightly, refusing to let go. Asterisk. It's all right, Daniel whispered. We're almost there. The girl didn't respond. Her eyes moved slowly around the room, wide with confusion. The hospital seemed too loud, too bright, too big for her fragile mind. Every echoing footstep made her flinch. A nurse at the reception desk looked up, surprised. Asterisk. Double quote, sir. What happened? She asked quickly, standing up. I found her collapsed outside my garage, Daniel replied, breathless. She needs help. Within minutes, they were guided into the emergency ward. Nurses carefully placed the girl on a bed, gently loosening her grip on Daniel's jacket. She whimpered softly, reaching out for him like a lost child. Daniel stepped closer. I'm here, he said firmly, letting her hold his hand. Doctors arrived, professional, distant, efficient. They asked questions Daniel didn't have answers to. Is she your daughter? No. Do you know her name? No. How long has she been like this? I don't know. Each no felt like a failure. Asterisk. The girl was examined thoroughly. Her heartbeat was normal. No signs of physical abuse. No fractures. No serious injuries. But when a doctor shined a light into her eyes and asked her simple questions, she stared back silently, her mind somewhere far away. What's your name? The doctor asked gently. She blinked. Nothing. Can you tell us where you live? Her lips trembled, but no words came. Daniel watched from the corner, helpless. He felt useless, like a man watching a car crash he couldn't stop. Asterisk. Hours passed. Finally, an older doctor with tired eyes motioned Daniel to step outside the room. They stood near a window overlooking the parking lot, where ambulances came and went like silent reminders of suffering. She's physically stable, the doctor said quietly, but mentally, it's complicated. Daniel's chest tightened. What do you mean? She's suffering from severe psychological trauma, the doctor continued, possibly due to a past accident or shock. Her memory seems deeply affected. She doesn't recognize herself, her surroundings, or even her own name. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. Will she recover? He asked. Asterisk. The doctor hesitated. With time, maybe. But there are no guarantees. Asterisk Daniel swallowed hard. Can she stay here? The doctor sighed, rubbing his forehead. This hospital doesn't have long-term care facilities for cases like hers. We can treat immediate needs, but beyond that, he didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Daniel looked through the glass window again. The girl sat quietly on the bed, swinging her legs like a small child, clutching Daniel's jacket that one of the nurses had placed beside her. She looked lost, alone, abandoned. What happens if no family comes? Daniel asked softly. The doctor's voice lowered. She would be transferred to a state facility. Not many people recover from those places. Something inside Daniel snapped. He remembered his wife's last days in a crowded hospital room. The loneliness, the waiting, the feeling of being just another number. He turned back to the doctor. I'll take responsibility for her, Daniel said. The doctor looked at him, stunned. Sir, she's not related to you. This isn't an easy burden. Daniel nodded slowly. I know. But she needs someone. Asterisk, there was a long silence. Finally, the doctor placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. You have a kind heart. Not many people would do this. Paperwork followed. Forms, signatures, questions. Daniel signed where he was told, barely reading. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of what he had just agreed to. When he returned to the room, the girl looked up at him. Her eyes softened, as if she recognized something familiar, not his face, but his presence. Asterisk, he sat beside her. It's okay, he whispered. You're not alone. She leaned closer, resting her head against his arm. Asterisk, for the first time since he found her, Daniel allowed himself to cry. Not loudly, not openly, just quiet tears of relief, fear, and hope. As they left the hospital together, the nurse handed Daniel a small bag of medicine and a gentle smile. Asterisk, you're doing a good thing, she said. Asterisk, Daniel nodded, holding the girl's hand tightly as they stepped back into the world. Asterisk, neither of them knew what awaited them. Asterisk, but from that moment on, they would face it together. The garage felt different that night. Daniel unlocked the door slowly, guiding the girl inside as if the place were fragile instead of her. The single yellow bulb hanging from the ceiling flickered, casting long shadows across the oil-stained floor. The sound of the city faded behind them, replaced by the quiet hum of the old refrigerator and the distant ticking of cooling engines. The girl stood still, gripping Daniel's sleeve, her eyes scanning the unfamiliar space with nervous curiosity. Asterisk, it's just a garage, Daniel said softly, trying to sound cheerful. Not fancy, but it's safe. She didn't reply, but she didn't pull away either. Daniel fetched a bucket of warm water and a clean cloth. Gently, respectfully, he cleaned the dirt from her hands and face. She watched him closely, as if trying to understand why someone would care enough to do this. When he handed her a plate of warm food, simple rice and lentils, she stared at it for a long moment, unsure. It's okay, he encouraged, sitting on an overturned crate nearby. You can eat. Slowly, cautiously, she took the first bite. Her eyes widened. Asterisk, she ate quietly, carefully, as if afraid the food might disappear if she moved too fast. Daniel pretended not to notice the way his chest tightened watching her. No child should eat like that, like survival was uncertain. When she finished, she looked up at him, food still on her lips, and smiled. Asterisk, it wasn't a big smile, but it was real. Asterisk, that smile broke Daniel more than tears ever could. He cleared a small corner of the garage, laying down an old mattress and covering it with a clean sheet he had saved from years ago. It wasn't much, but it was warm. You can sleep here, he said gently. She hesitated, then sat down, hugging her knees. After a moment, She reached out and lightly held the edge of Daniel's pant leg, asking, without words, for him not to leave. Daniel sat beside her until her breathing slowed and her eyes finally closed. That night, he didn't sleep. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the open shutter. The girl was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the mattress, watching Daniel work on an engine. She seemed fascinated by every movement, every tool, every sound. She followed him everywhere silently. If he moved, she moved. If he stopped, she stopped. Daniel tried again. "What's your name?" he asked gently. She tilted her head, confused. He pointed to himself. "Daniel." She blinked, then smiled. He tried pointing to her. "You?" She stared at him blankly. Daniel thought for a moment. How about Lily?" he said softly. "Do you like Lily?" Something changed in her eyes. Not understanding, but acceptance. "Lily," Daniel repeated, smiling. From that moment on, she was Lily. Days turned into weeks. Lily spent her time sitting on a stool in the garage, swinging her legs while Daniel worked. She laughed at strange moments. She cried suddenly, without reason. Loud noises frightened her. When an engine backfired, she would cover her ears and hide behind Daniel, trembling. He never scolded her, never raised his voice. When she cried, he sat beside her. When she laughed, he smiled. When she was scared, he stood between her and the world. People noticed. Neighbors stopped by the garage, whispering, "Why is she always here?" She's crazy, isn't she? He's inviting trouble. One man laughed. "You're not a charity, Daniel." Daniel wiped his hands and looked at them calmly. "She's not trouble," he said. "She's a child." That was the end of the conversation. At night, Daniel brought her small things, a ribbon, a piece of candy, a cheap toy car. Lily treasured each one like a miracle. She slept holding them close, afraid they might vanish by morning. One evening, as rain poured outside, Lily suddenly reached for Daniel's hand. He looked down. She pressed her forehead against his arm, her body shaking slightly. "It's okay," Daniel whispered instinctively, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "I'm here." In that moment, he realized something terrifying and beautiful. He wasn't just protecting her anymore. He loved her. Not out of pity, not out of responsibility, but like a father loves a child. Daniel had lost everything once: his wife, his unborn child, his future. Without realizing it, he had found something again. And Lily, broken, nameless, forgotten, had found something too. A home. Life inside the garage slowly found a rhythm, one that revolved around two broken souls, quietly healing each other. Daniel woke up every morning before sunrise, and Lily was always there, sitting near the shutter, waiting for him, as if she feared he might disappear if she closed her eyes for too long. She followed him with silent devotion, her small steps echoing behind his heavier ones, her presence constant and comforting. Daniel noticed how she watched him with absolute trust, as if he were the only solid thing in her fragile world. He began adjusting his life around her without even realizing it, choosing work that allowed him to stay close, closing the garage early on days she seemed anxious, and skipping meals just to make sure she ate first. Lily didn't understand money, but she understood care, and she responded to it in the only way she knew, by clinging to Daniel with a love so pure it hurt. One cold evening, rain began to pour heavily, drumming against the metal roof of the garage. Thunder cracked the sky, loud and sudden, and Lily screamed, dropping to the floor and covering her ears. Her body shook uncontrollably, her breath coming in short, frightened gasps. Daniel rushed to her instantly, kneeling and pulling her into his arms. He held her tightly, rocking her gently as if she were an infant, whispering soothing words he didn't even remember learning. "It's okay, Lily. You're safe. Nothing will hurt you," he said again and again, even as tears welled up in his own eyes. Lily buried her face into his chest, clutching his shirt like her life depended on it. And slowly, painfully slowly, her trembling eased. That night, she refused to sleep alone. Daniel spread a thin blanket on the floor beside her mattress and stayed there until dawn, listening to her breathing, realizing that protecting her mattered more to him than his own comfort ever could. As days passed, Lily began showing small signs of attachment that cut deep into Daniel's heart. She waited for him whenever he stepped out, panicking if he was gone too long. She touched his arm to make sure he was real. She smiled only when he smiled first. Once, when Daniel injured his hand while fixing a car, Lily saw the blood and started crying uncontrollably, grabbing his wrist and rocking back and forth as if the pain were hers. Daniel tried to calm her, but in that moment, he understood something with terrifying clarity. She had made him her entire world. And somehow, without planning it, she had become his too. Neighbors continued to judge from a distance. Some shook their heads, others mocked quietly, but Daniel stopped caring. He noticed how Lily waited for him to finish work before touching her food, how she insisted on sitting beside him even when customers stared, how she slept holding his old jacket every night. He bought her second-hand clothes with his last savings, repairing torn shoes late at night so she could walk comfortably. When Lily laughed, the garage felt warmer. When she cried, it felt unbearably empty. Daniel often caught himself imagining a future he never allowed himself to dream of before school, birthdays, safety. The idea scared him because it meant he had something to lose again. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in soft orange hues, Lily sat beside Daniel on a wooden crate, watching him count his small earnings. She leaned her head against his shoulder without hesitation, without fear. Daniel froze for a second, then slowly rested his cheek against her hair. His throat tightened. Memories of his late wife flooded his mind, of the child they never got to raise, of the life that had been taken from him too soon. In Lily, fate had returned something precious, something fragile, something that needed him. He whispered softly, more to himself than to her, "I'll never let anything happen to you." Lily didn't understand the words, but she felt the promise, and she smiled. That night, as Lily slept peacefully, Daniel sat awake, staring at the ceiling, his heart heavy with love and fear. He knew he was poor. He knew he had little to offer the world. But in that quiet garage, holding the hand of a girl no one else wanted, Daniel understood a truth that no amount of money could ever change love, did not need wealth to be real, and family did not always come from blood. Sometimes it was born from kindness, from shared pain, and from a promise kept in the darkest moments. That morning began like any other at the garage, with the sound of metal tools clinking and engines coughing back to life. But fate had already decided that nothing would remain ordinary after that day. Daniel was tightening a bolt when a sudden silence fell over the street, an unnatural pause that made him look up. A long, sleek black car rolled slowly to a stop in front of the garage, its polished surface reflecting the cracked road and dusty walls around it like a cruel contrast between two different worlds. Lily, who had been sitting on her usual stool, coloring aimlessly on a scrap of cardboard, lifted her head at the sound. Her eyes fixed on the car, and something deep inside her shifted, something old and buried, stirring without explanation. The car door opened, and a tall, well-dressed man stepped out. His suit was expensive, but it hung loosely on his body, as if wealth had failed to protect him from exhaustion and grief. His face was pale, his eyes sunken, carrying the unmistakable weight of a man who had not slept peacefully in a very long time. He took a few steps forward, then stopped suddenly, as if struck by an invisible force. His gaze locked onto Lily, and the world around him disappeared. Time seemed to slow as the man staggered forward, his breath uneven, his hands trembling. "No, this can't be," he whispered, his voice breaking before the words fully formed. Lily stood up slowly, confused by the intensity of his stare, instinctively stepping back toward Daniel. But before anyone could react, the man dropped to his knees right there on the dirty street, uncaring of the dust staining his expensive clothes. Tears streamed freely down his face as he reached out with shaking hands. "My child," he sobbed, his voice cracking under the weight of months of pain. "My baby." He wrapped Lily in his arms with desperate strength, holding her as if the world might steal her away again if he loosened his grip. Lily stiffened at first, startled by the sudden embrace, but then something unexplainable happened. Her body relaxed. Her head rested against his chest. Her breathing slowed. Somewhere deep in her fractured mind, a memory without words recognized the safety she once knew. Daniel stood frozen, his heart pounding violently as he watched the scene unfold. Unable to understand why this powerful stranger clung to the girl he had come to see as his own child. "Sir," Daniel finally said, forcing his voice to remain steady. "Do you know her?" The man looked up at him, eyes red, tears still falling, and nodded repeatedly. "She is my daughter," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Her name is Amelia." The name hung in the air, like a ghost from the past. "She was in a terrible accident months ago. After that, she changed. Her mind. It never came back the same. One day she wandered away, and she disappeared." His shoulders shook as he spoke. "I searched everywhere. Hospitals, shelters, streets, entire cities. I used my money, my power, everything I had. I thought I had lost her forever." Daniel felt the ground shift beneath his feet. He looked at Amelia and saw her small fingers clutching the man's coat, just as she used to clutch his jacket. A sharp pain cut through his chest. "She collapsed outside my garage," Daniel said quietly. "She didn't know her name. She didn't know anyone." The billionaire turned toward Daniel fully now, truly seeing him for the first time. He stood up slowly, and then, to Daniel's shock, bowed his head deeply. "You saved my daughter's life," he said. "You fed her, protected her, loved her when the world ignored her. No amount of money can repay that." His voice trembled with sincerity. Daniel shook his head, overwhelmed. "I just did what anyone should." "No," the man replied firmly. "You did what very few would." Lily looked back and forth between the two men, sensing the tension, the sadness, the importance of the moment. She reached for Daniel's hand, gripping it tightly, fear creeping into her eyes. Daniel squeezed her hand back, forcing a gentle smile, even as his heart began to shatter piece by piece. The billionaire knelt again, this time beside Daniel. "I will take her home," he said softly. "She needs doctors, care, a future I can give her. But I will never forget what you gave her first." Daniel nodded slowly, though every part of him screamed in protest. He understood. Love sometimes meant letting go. The morning air felt heavier than usual, as if the city itself sensed what was about to happen. The garage, once filled with the quiet warmth of shared days, now carried a painful silence. Daniel stood near the open shutter, watching as expensive luggage was placed carefully into the sleek black car parked outside. Everything about that car felt foreign to him, its shine, its size, its certainty. Lily sat on a small wooden stool inside the garage, her feet dangling. her eyes moving back and forth between Daniel and the strangers who were preparing to take her away. She did not fully understand what was happening, but she felt the change, and fear crept slowly into her fragile heart. Daniel knelt in front of her, forcing a gentle smile that did not reach his eyes. His hands trembled as he fixed the collar of her clean dress, one the billionaire's assistant had brought for her. It was soft, new, and beautiful, yet it felt wrong in Daniel's hands because it meant separation. Lily reached out and held his wrist tightly, her fingers digging into his skin as if she were afraid he might fade away. Her eyes filled with tears and her lower lip quivered. Daniel swallowed hard, his chest aching in a way he had never felt before. "You're going somewhere safe," he whispered slowly, carefully, hoping his voice wouldn't break. "They'll take care of you." Lily shook her head, confusion and panic mixing together. She leaned forward and pressed her forehead against his chest, clinging to him like she had on that stormy night months ago. The billionaire stood a few steps away, watching in silence, his heart heavy with guilt and gratitude. He had found his daughter, but in doing so, he had uncovered a truth that haunted him while he searched with money, power, and influence. It was a poor mechanic with nothing but kindness who had truly saved her. He stepped forward slowly and knelt beside them. "She'll have doctors, teachers, the best care," he said gently, almost pleading, as if trying to convince himself as much as Daniel. Daniel nodded, unable to speak, because words would shatter him completely. Lily suddenly looked up at Daniel, her eyes locking onto his with desperate clarity. For the first time since he had known her, her voice came out clearly, not broken, not lost. "Papa, don't go," she said softly. The words sliced through Daniel's heart. He gasped, tears finally spilling freely down his face. He pulled her into his arms, holding her as tightly as he dared, breathing in the scent of her hair, memorizing the feel of her small body against his chest. "I'm right here," he whispered, though both of them knew that wasn't true anymore. "I'll always be with you right here," he added, placing his hand over her heart. Lily cried quietly, her tears soaking into his shirt, her fingers gripping him like anchors. Time moved cruelly forward. The driver cleared his throat gently, reminding them that it was time. Daniel slowly loosened his hold, though every part of him resisted. He stood, lifting Lily into his arms one last time, just like the day he found her outside the garage. For a brief moment, the world faded away, and it was just them again, a broken girl and a broken man who had healed each other. He set her down carefully and kissed her forehead. "Be brave," he said softly. Lily reached for him, but the billionaire gently took her hand. His own eyes filled with tears. As Lily was guided into the car, she turned back again and again, pressing her hands against the window, crying silently. Daniel stood frozen, his arms hanging uselessly by his sides, feeling poorer than he ever had in his life. The car door closed with a soft click that echoed like a final goodbye. When the engine started and the car slowly drove away, Lily's face remained at the window until it disappeared down the street. Daniel did not move. He did not wave. He could not. The garage felt unbearably empty after that. The stool Lily used to sit on stood untouched. Her small blanket lay folded in the corner. Daniel walked inside slowly, each step heavy. He picked up her ribbon, still resting on a workbench, and closed his hand around it. He sat down on the cold floor and finally allowed himself to break, his quiet sobs filling the space where laughter once lived. Yet beneath the pain, there was something else pride. He had loved her when no one else did. He had protected her when the world failed her. Far away. In the back seat of the car, Lily rested her head against the glass, clutching the memory of a poor mechanic who gave her a name, a home, and a father's love. And though Daniel stood alone that day, with empty hands and an empty garage, he carried something no wealth could ever replace, the knowledge that he had changed a life forever.